Interoperability, I believe, is the term. So what the Sam Hill is that? You know, you're dealing with somebody as dumb as a box of rocks, buddy. So I assume it's multiple operations. But what do you got going here?
Well, Andy, Lalo, thanks for having me, and Happy New Year to both of you. I will tell you that I'm working on some pretty exciting stuff. And it's not just interoperability, it's global interoperability that I want you to be aware of. So global interoperability, really what they are is a couple of standards that we're using in order to communicate, through multiple systems. So interoperability in and of itself means that one system can communicate with another. So don't confuse that with like open source where you can take a file and put it on all those things. But if I can go back just a little bit, we started out in around, I picked up innovation in around 2017, late 2017 into 2018, and we started experimenting with blockchain. And at the time, you would have thought that it was going to solve world hunger, world peace, and distributed ledger was the way to go. And I had to weed through those things. And so when I got involved with it, as you can tell, I'm not the greatest cheerleader in the world, but I'm hesitant because of all the experience that I have in doing IT-related work. So throughout that experimentation, we actually did two pieces that were pretty interesting, and I don't really have enough time to discuss them. But what it started to prove out is that we didn't need a blockchain system in and of itself. There were some areas for the government that weren't proving successful for us, right? It would have pigeonholed us into a technology. We would have forced all of the community onto that technology as well. So we pivoted to global interoperability. And those two pieces break down into two forms. One is a decentralized identifier, and the other is a verifiable credential. Now, the decentralized identifier is a unique ID number so that, Andy or Lalo, if you guys are on with a network with me on network A, you can recognize me. And then I move over to network B or C and you follow me over there. You can always recognize me. But what you can't do is you can't steal my persona, right? You can't come in and imitate me because I have what's called a private encrypted key, right? So that is already a very safe notion of being able to keep data intact. You always know where things are coming from origin.
So to stop, so basically what the advantage of blockchain is and in this technology, what we were talking about, it gives in a sense, in the concept is an audit trail digitally on the files and whatnot, so that if there was a change, you could backtrack to say who did the change and where did it come from and when did it happen, correct?
Yeah, well, now we're not going into blockchain, so I don't want you to confuse that. We're moving into a standard, and there's a strong reason for that. And that is that when you're creating that layer, I don't have to tell anybody what type of system to use. They can make those determinations themselves, right? All right. So what you can do, though, with the digital credentials, which was and the other part is the verifiable credentials, before I forget to talk about that. And that's the vehicle in which the data is actually passed. So what you can do is when you receive data from someone, you can go back and authenticate it. So let me give you an example of that. So let's say I am speeding out on the road and Andy, you're a police officer, so you pull me over. Now, you can't just ask me for an ID, but what you're going to ask me for is my license, right? So I pull out my license and I show you, and you look at all the attributes. And you say, my gosh, that is the closest thing I've ever seen to Superman. No, I'm kidding. But you go through all the attributes, and you can see that, I got brown eyes, I'm 5 foot, whatever, my weight, and you start to apply those. But what's the one thing that you don't know?
If that is actually truly you, right?
That is right, because that card could be fraudulent. So what does the officer do? He goes back, or she goes back to the car and runs it through the DMV. We're able to do that now through automation.
But I don't know my suppliers because they don't want to tell me who those suppliers are, only because obviously I can jump them and, go straight to those guys to get products. Would that solve that problem? I mean, am I going down the wrong path? I mean, is this kind of
Lalo, I'm optimistic on this, so I think I can solve anything if you give me a shot to do it, right? But
hey, folks, just so you know, and Lalo, I'm going to tell you, Vinny's the type of guy, he's so optimistic when it comes to innovation. Now, he's realistic, but I'm going to tell you, this guy would go after Moby Dick in a rowboat and take the tartar sauce with him. He's that optimistic. He's good.
We did some studies when we were looking at ACE, as we were looking at ACE 2.0 with the COAC. And right now, because I think I'm online, I've just forgotten what the acronym stands for, the Customs, Operational Advisory Committee. But anyway, when we went through the supply chain with them, we really found that the government didn't have any insight into that first third of the supply chain. So just filling that hole in really helps bolster that, and also sets a level playing field among all the nations that we're engaging with. On the forced labor, just to finish the point. So if you could set a baseline where you can track, all of the entities, you still have the difficulties. You have to use other technologies. And I know that we did a forum back in, I think it was in February of this year, last year. And we exposed some of the technologies that we are starting to use. And I think companies, if they're interested, should look to see who those are and engage with them as well. I think ultimately, if we start to look down that avenue, the benefits to businesses are much more than we're considering it. It's not just a technological move. This is, I think, even potentially a social move that will help us along the lines eventually as we get the system built out. So any support we can get, we'll take. Watch what we're doing or get involved ultimately. And I think the businesses, all the businesses that we're working with have been really very, very positive about what we're doing. So I'd like to see that continue to move forward. But one of the things that I want you to ask me, but I'll do it for you.
Yeah, please do.
What are we doing with the countries? Well, we're on the verge of developing a global AEO CTPAC credential.
Oh my goodness. Okay. That is all right. So yeah, you mean there's an actual collaboration on getting that trusted trader concept put into place and actually put into a scenario where you're using, all right, keep going. This is great.
Nice.
All right. So what you're going to do is we're going to baby step into this. It's not going to happen overnight. The test is going to prove out whether or not we can exchange credentials between countries. And we may even invite the private sector in, so that we can issue a credential to a private partner and then have them reveal that credential to us. But what it does is right now, you have to go in and apply at one country. And then there's a very archaic way of getting MRA, mutual recognition arrangement benefits with another country. So we want to automate that. But the eventual outcome is that we could potentially use the credential and it could just be exposed as the company comes in on the cargo transaction. And we can determine right there and then whether or not we're going to issue benefits.